BSides San Antonio. First of all, I would like to huge shout out to our sponsors, platinum sponsors, Island and St. Mary's for making this event possible. And we are also grateful for information health security. I would like to turn my mic to Brian as he's going to talk about yet another AI talk.
Yes. So as you guys can see, my talk is about AI, and I made this talk because I was going to conferences and people were always talking about AI, and I knew that was going to be a huge topic this year as well. When you're looking at the AI, the way the AI is affecting our lives and the way that we work. So I am a pen tester by trade, and I developed this talk basically because I wanted to implement AI into my workflow and actually be able to use it correctly. So we'll start off by the obligatory, who am I? You guys can see some of the information. This is my second career. I was in the Air Force. I did 23 years in the Air Force. I conduct basically all types of application security, internal, external, pen tests. In my free time, I like to do jiu-jitsu, as you guys can see. I have some industry certifications, a couple of CVEs, blah, blah, blah. Again, why are we talking about this, right? There's AI advice everywhere. In every conference that I would go to, I would hear this AI advice, but nobody was really telling me how to use it or really how to implement it into my workflow. They just kept talking about AI. So I, last year, jumped right into how can I actually use this? What does it do right? What does it do wrong? Where does it get really, really dangerous? And these are all based on my usage of AI in my pen testing workflow. So quick poll here: who all's actually using AI in their pen testing work? Is everybody kind of implementing it, right? So we got a couple of hands where people are using AI in their workflow. For me, when I first started out, there's always those guardrails on AI, right? AI is always telling us, oh, you can't do that. That's illegal. You can't do that. But there are a couple of resources in here that I will give you to kind of help you out when you're pen testing, to kind of get by some of those guardrails. I wouldn't say like jailbreak it or anything, but it's necessary in our work to do security testing. So I have some resources in here for you guys to help you all out with that. All right, where are we at with AI tooling in 2026? This is where a lot of people, when they're looking at AI, they don't understand the differences in AI, right? So we have chat AI. That's basically, you're looking at your Groks, your chat GPTs, Claws, things where you're just asking it questions and it's really going to give you an answer based on what it can search for the internet, right? So it's basically just a chatbot. These are my opinions. It's basically just a chatbot. You got your IDE and your Copilot AIs, right? These are where it can give you suggestions, right? So it's kind of giving you suggestions on the workflow and the things that you're asking it. And then your agentic AIs, those are your, it's basically running full-fledged, letting it go. It's firing away, right? So it's running full course, everything that you ask it to do something, it's going to do it. If you're not paying attention, it's going to go down a rabbit hole and you're going to end up in a mess where you didn't really want to be. So those are the distinctions of the different types of AI. And when you're looking at trying to set up something for your infrastructure and what you're doing in pen testing, you just need to make sure you're picking the right one. So for today's journey, this is what we're going to be talking about. Basically where AI wins from my experiences, right? Where AI failed in my experiences and where AI can hurt you and your company, based on my experiences from testing. So what you're going to hear a lot today is going to be about effective prompting. Right? That's what we need to look at. We need to make sure we're giving AI the context that we want to give it to make sure it's giving us the output that we expect to receive, right? So, when we first started playing with AI, even me, when I first started playing with AI, I would give it something and it would give me just garbage and I didn't understand why. So it really took some training of myself to understand how to use AI correctly. So we're going to be looking at effective prompts. All right, so here's where AI actually works really, really well, right? So AI is working really well, processing large recon data, right? As a pen tester, we're always doing recon, right? Recon. That's really what sets us up for success in a lot of these things, right? So, but AI can really help you process that data. Writing custom scripts, right? So we're all familiar with different tools out there that use scripts like, anything really, right? So I'm not a coder, but I can show you some great Python code that AI has written that's going to help me do something, right? So It's going to help us generate word lists, right? We're always using the Rocky word list, right? That's just our standard word list. But if I know who my target is and I know who the audience is, why can't I have my AI bot go out there and start generating a word list based on who my customer is, right? So it can build a better word list than what you are using. Polishing findings, drafts, right? I'm a pen tester. I'm not a report writer. So I hate writing reports. Reports take up 30 to 40% of our time. Why shouldn't I be able to shove all of my scoping documents and everything within my AI bot to be able to start generating reports based on findings? I mean, it's very, very quick. It's very, very good. Nuclei templates, again, that's what we were talking about earlier. Very quick wins. It can write one-liners. Format conversions. I've got clients, we print out PDFs, but they want JSON format. Golly, right? So I can get it to do that, do the conversions for me. Deobfuscating JavaScript, right? So I know I'm horrible. And all web app pen testers will tell you they hate looking at front end code because it's minified or it's just thousands and thousands of lines, right, of code. But AI can really help you deobfuscate some of that code. So. All right, so here is an example of a prompt that I used, and this is basically doing my data recon and turning it in. Basically, I've got this huge 50,000 lines worth of burp code. I can feed that burp code into my AI of choice that I have set up and ask it this question. And basically, when we're asking it the questions, you can see we're not asking it questions to say, hey, analyze this code. We're giving it specifics, right? I'm reviewing Burp Suite proxy history from a web app. I parsed, pasted it out, and then I go 1, 2, 3. Give me everything that I want to see based on the data that I'm giving it. And once I prompt it correctly, I can paste the data in there, and it's going to parse that data out. It's going to parse it out very quickly based on what I'm asking it for. Another example down at the bottom there is the in-map output processing, right? If we've got a large network, there could be thousands and thousands of entries for in-map, right? Like we've run these scans. The Nessus scans the same way. You could have pages and pages of Nessus scans. We can dump that information in there, and then we can start to target our attack or target our focus on particular ports, particular outputs that we want to see that really make sense when we're doing pen testing instead of just trying to analyze it all manually. So, but it can, so it basically works very, very fast on parsing that data and giving me outputs that I expect based on the input that I'm giving it. Custom tooling, again, this is one. Nuclei is a huge one. The YAML files that we use for Nuclei, right? We used to have to wait until somebody uploaded something to the GitHub for project discovery, and we're like, oh, a new one for this CVE just came out, right? We can do that ourselves now. We don't have to wait for somebody to upload the YAML file to project discovery's GitHub. You can just start doing the work yourself, right? And we can do that with correct prompts, right? So we can tell it to write particular prompts for a particular CVE. One caveat on CVEs that I have noticed, and it may get better as more models come out, but it will give you garbage CVEs if you ask it for a CVE. It's not very good at researching CVEs for some reason. I had multiple occasions to where my AI prompt would give me a CVE that didn't even exist. And this is where it gets into the bad when we get there later on in the talk, right? If you put that in your report, your client goes to look it up, you're going to look kind of foolish. So, but definitely custom tooling, right? Using AI to write the custom tooling for you based on the research that you have already done. So this is a real engagement. I took some information and some data from a real engagement that I was on, and this is kind of where AI worked really well for me in this engagement, right? I was working on a legal disposition platform. Basically, me as a customer can log into here and say, hey, here's this. I want you to take all this data and, spin it out for court reporters or anything like that, right? So it was really just somewhere I could start to upload data. But what I found was, as soon as I went to analyze the code, my methodology has changed since I've been using AI. So what I do now is I'll go to the website and I will basically just download the front end code, feed the front end code right into my AI and have it analyze the code and look for particular vulnerabilities, right? So in this instance here, we always see these like Google API keys, Firebase keys. All these keys are loaded into the front end code because that's how they're transmitting data back and forth to wherever they're storing certain things. Well, in this case, the API key was embedded, but nobody really saw it because it was in minified code, right? So it's just one long string line of code and nobody really reading it, because who's going to take the time to sit there and just scroll left, to be able to see that? So. But what came from it was I posted the JavaScript bundle. AI was like, hey, we've got this here. And okay, well, I was like, well, it's just API key, not a big deal. So I just kept testing, right? And then it's kind of like, let's go back. All right, what did it really find? But we'll see here. Well, you can see what was exposed. In the end, we had access basically to every tenant on the network because of this exposure. But you can see what AI actually saw here. These are some of the outputs from the JavaScript bundle. It told me that it found the script, the Firebase API key. This is the whole line right here. I've just cleaned it up, made it pretty so you guys could read it. But it's basically everything that you needed to get access to this company's Firebase was right there in the code, right in the front end code. So just nobody has ever torn it apart to look at it. But you can kind of see here, this is basically what the AI identified. It actually identified the token exchange flow for me as well. I mean, it made this critical finding so easy. All I had to do was manually go validate it, right? It found the tokens flow. It provided a step-by-step chain. You can see over on this side, it provided a step-by-step chain of what I need to do, how I need to do it, and how I can manually validate this finding. So this was definitely not my finding. I had to validate it, and that's where AI can really help you out. Works with you in conjunction to, just throwing AI at it. So here's another one. AI code review found privilege escalations is sitting in the front end code as well. I was able to. This is the same engagement, same client, but on a different application that they had. The same type of scenario, the front-end JavaScript bundle, it was minified, hard to read. Nobody ever had looked at it, but what it ended up having in there was two put requests that we didn't even know existed. I had mapped the whole application out in Burp Suite, and these put requests to these update roles were nowhere to be found within my manual digging, right? So I didn't know what existed, but in the front-end code, it had these put requests as part of upgrading the users in the front end code based on how they logged in. So again, this is another, there was no mention of any of this information in the Swagger docs or the API documentation. The only mention of these put requests were within the front end JavaScript code. So we didn't know they existed. I didn't know they existed based on my manual testing. So what we were able to do is have AI scan that code and basically give us some outputs. This is kind of what it looked like, the minified code. That top one is basically, again, it's pretty fine, it's looking good, but think of this as just one long running line across, the page. You can see in here that there are some user GUIDs, and there are some put requests. You can see here, these are the put requests where it's identifying these put requests exist. But again, this is not something that we saw within our Burp Suite. But what AI was able to extract was these two put requests here, this admin update role and admin user activation role. And they didn't need any authorization to be able to conduct. So any low-level user or any guest user could do these put requests if they knew these put requests existed. So AI basically found the route of something existing that we as testers didn't know existed. So this is what else it saw. This is some more information that it gave me out of the bundle that it had torn apart. It basically had every privilege within the code. So all the code was there, every user level. My starting role was like videographer. I was like a level 501 or 500. But it told me, if you want to be super admin, just change your user to 100, right? So that's basically what it's telling me. So I was able to basically strip the code down, increase my privileges to super admin, and the attack was over from nobody, right? So from nobody, not even having an account in the system, I could create a super admin account. So there was no enumeration that was needed. Everything was within the JavaScript bundle. The user IDs were there. And yeah, it just made it a privilege escalation attack very, very easy just by having AI read that front end code. All right, and this is another one that I talked about earlier as far as specific word lists. This one has gotten me a lot of password guesses. This is an example of a prompt that I would do to build a better word list other than just throwing rock you at things. I would just let it know how many I want, what we're looking at. Here's the client, and just give it a lot of details to help build word lists based on my needs. So I'm giving it a clear input to get a good output word list based on my scoping. So report writing, right? This is the biggest one that nobody ever talks about because nobody likes to do it, especially with pen testing, right? So, the way that this prompt is, I've actually done a lot more with this prompt to basically have it start generating reports or looking at reports from the very beginning, right? So I'm like, but now when I start my test, I start to feed AI the scope and give it as much of the guardrails as I can. And I want it to output findings as I go. So if I'm testing and I have a finding, it already makes a markdown file of the particular finding that I have. But then I also do an end of day. So I use an end of day feature to where I'm saying, hey, this is the end of the day, and it builds my context from the AI it builds my context out. So the next day I can just refer back to that context and start over. So I can keep my context low. Everybody understand kind of how that works, right? If your context gets too big within a prompt, it's going to start working worse for you, right? So at the end of the day, I always have it build a markdown file. So at the beginning of the day, I can feed it into a new prompt to say, hey, this is what we were doing yesterday. Let's continue. So it helps me keep my context low. But report writing is great. This was probably the biggest thing when I brought it to my company. I was like, look what this can do, and they were all about it. Now just give me a template. I can feed a template into my AI prompt to say, hey, these are the headers I want you to follow. Here is all of our findings. Start throwing these into the template. Basically, I want you to follow this template. So the complete picture of where it works, a lot of raw data, it can look at a lot of raw data for us. It can analyze that raw data. If we give it clear and defined boundaries, it'll give us good data back, right? Make sure when you're looking at CVEs, you're not necessarily just trying to have it generate a CVE for you. Make sure you're very concise on CVEs. But let's get into our next portion. What time do I have to be done? Does anybody have the calendar? I got a clock. I did 11:20. Do you know what time it's done?
It's been like 12 o'clock.
12:05. I know it's lunch too, so everybody's looking at me like they're hungry. So anyway, all right. So where it struggled, and these are based on my observations, right? Where it struggled. So again, CVEs. It would give me CVEs. It would invent CVEs, and this is where it kind of gets dangerous for us because I can't memorize all the CVEs, right? So it's like, hey, and especially with new people using AI, they take it as gospel, and it's like, oh yeah, that CVE is great, and it's cool, and then they dump the CVE into the report, and it doesn't even exist. So it will use a lot of outdated flags on your tooling. I've learned this with Nmap. So Nmap it will use a lot of the outdated flags based on the model that you're using. It will deliver answers to you that it is very confident about, even though it's not right. It doesn't know your scope or your rules of engagement. So unless you provide that, that's something that you're going to have to give your AI model. It'll give you generic answers, but reviews code in isolation. And so when you give it code to review, it reviews it in isolation and doesn't really know the actual data flow of that. So that's where we have to come in as manual testers. So we get a lot of false positives. For those that own AI companies that are doing AI pen testing, I don't know how you're going to get by that without a manual review. Good luck, because I haven't found a way to just fire AI off and just let it go. The manual review is there. We have to do it. And AI sounds very authoritative, even when it's wrong, right? It can give you an answer on something. It's like, yes, this is it. So it can set you up for failure. So So yeah, basically this little discussion here, is AI ever completely giving you the wrong answer? I know anybody that has used it, those that are using AI knows that AI is going to give you the wrong answer and is going to send you down a path that you don't want to go down. So just be aware of it. So this is one that it got me on. Find CVEs for Apache. Is this vulnerability exploitable? Blah blah blah. Right. So you can see down there it returned a CVE 24. That CVE didn't even exist. I didn't know. I mean, of course, I copied it, stuck it in there, and then I start to go look at my research, and I'm like, where did this number come from, right? And then I even asked it, it's like, where did you get this number, And it's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, oh, great, thank you, Thanks for the help, dude, So that's something you have to be very, very aware of, that it will invent. I have now made my agent, right? Don't invent things, right? You have to tell it. Like I put it into my file, in my agent file, and say, you can't invent stuff, don't make stuff up. So hopefully that works, but you still got to look at it. Let's see. Yeah, so if I were to put the CVE in the report and my client would have started looking at it, we would have looked pretty silly, right? So let's see, tool syntax. So you can see here, I had asked AI to give me a SQL command or nmap command or whatever it's using. It doesn't know the context, right, of the test that I'm doing. So AI, when I asked for the SQL map command, gave me a great looking command. Anybody knowing that's great, they'll be like, yeah, that's a great command. But when we start to look at the risk 3, level 5, without knowing the context of SQL map, it's going to be, we didn't put the guardrails necessary around there to actually make it worthwhile on that SQL map, right? It was just going to start, it's kind of like just running a blanket SQL map command and just throwing millions of requests against the web server based on what it gave me here. So same with the nmap here, right? It didn't know the context. It would have sent over 4 million packets if I would have used this against the /24 that it wrote the command for. And it could have knocked things offline, alerted, had alerts on the client. So the SOC team would have definitely not been happy with all my actions. So we have to make sure when we ask AI for a particular command for a particular tool that we are using, we know what that command is doing, right? We can't just copy it and then throw it in there and just let it run. So. But it is very good, right? Like with a Nabu scan or something like that. Well, there's flags for everything, so I can get good nmap, good scan information from it. So here's a code review that AI did for me. It got the code review right based on my prompt, but it missed the vulnerability, right? So the vulnerability was there. But I still missed it because the way that I had prompted, right? This was me early on learning how to use AI. I was like, hey, is there a SQL injection in this function, right? And it gives me the AI. AI is like, nope, everything's good. No SQL injection. But what it missed was, in some of the other code, it missed the IDOR that was available because I didn't prompt it correctly. Vulnerability was still there, and it just bypassed it. So you need to ask the right questions within what you're trying to get out of it, right? Instead of just taking it for granted to say, hey, this code looks good. So let's see. Or, you've seen this. Is this query safe? I think there's a meme out there where he's asking AI if he could eat the mushroom, and the guy's like, yeah, go ahead. And then he's dead, right? So this is the same kind of thing. So we asked the wrong question because it didn't know the context of what we were really looking for. So, all right. So let's see. Being generic, that's one of the things that can kind of get you caught up when you're using, when you're trying to use AI within your testing. Being too generic, it doesn't know the context of what you're trying to do. So generate a security checklist for this REST API, and you can feed it the REST API. It's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily know the context. There could be GraphQL there, so it's missing a lot of what you want it to build if you're just too generic on what you're actually trying to get out of it. So does anybody have any stories? Like what is it other than my context, what's AI really told you that's been really, really wrong? Does anybody have any war story on that? No, it's like, just shut up, we're hungry. So what you got?
This is the latest rules that apply to this particular technology.
Right.
It gave me yes.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Yeah.
This is the entire version number.
Yeah, yeah.
That would have been fire.
Yeah, version numbers are bad, so.
I was asking about SpaceX.
Uh-huh, yep.
And the first time I probably told, oh, no, okay, no.
Right, yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? Like, we have to, yeah, yeah. It's got SpaceX IPO back there. He's in the wrong room. Sorry. All right. So again, this is where this is just a complete picture of some of the things that we had talked about, and where AI, in my opinion, like I said, all of this is just from my opinion of where AI fails, and has almost tripped me up without me having to really look at what we were doing. So CVE lookups, commands that when I ask it for a command, it'll give me a command, but we need to make sure we know what that command is doing. It can do code review for you, but sometimes misses that cross-flow data, right? So it makes assumptions on the tech stack as well, so it will make assumptions. Sir, did you have something?
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's not a mechanism. When you say it fails, how much of the failure was AI versus not giving the right guardrails?
I say AI failed because I failed AI. Does that make sense? My context was bad. But these are some of the traps that we can get into because we as users aren't necessarily using it the way that we didn't give it a clear input to get our expected output. So I say AI fails because we make assumptions based on the question that we ask it. Does that make sense? So yeah, don't blame AI. These are all my failures. But this is me blaming AI on blaming me. Yeah. So, all right. All right, let's get into here where it gets dangerous, right? Go ahead, sir. Yep.
It doesn't sound like you're running a lot locally, but have you ever gone into like trying to figure out metrics for a prompt and then VRAM consumption to handle that prompt, and then you can calculate how much of the session you can sustain or have to scratch again?
So, and that's going to be based on model, right? So the way that I didn't really want to get into like the specific models and specific context because the token usage is all different for all of them, right? So I may do it one way and somebody else may do it another way, but I usually only go to about 75% of my context before I have to start a new one. Does that make sense? So that's just the way that I use it. I know I've been running Hermes the last few days. The Hermes agent, I don't know if you know what it is. I like that because it basically trains itself. It has its own RAG. Don't worry about it. You can look at that later. But the context there is different on the way that one builds, right? And that one builds very, very fast. So I haven't found a good use to use Hermes in pen testing because the context builds so fast. Does that make sense? So there are differences. I can tell you how I use it and what models and things that I use if we have time. But right now, yeah, it's very dependent on the model and the one that you're using. So where it gets dangerous, again, and we've all heard these now, it can cost your company money, it can cost your company or your client's trust. Sometimes, you're going to make the news. So, and that's what we don't want to do, right? But you want to make sure that you're protecting the data. Your client may not even know you're using AI, right? So you may need to let them know that, hey, I'm using AI within this type of penetration testing. And you want to make sure you don't go out of scope. That was one big one you'll see here in an example of going out of scope because I didn't give it the right scoping. And inputs you didn't sanitize as a tester, meaning I gave the data to AI when I should have sanitized it first. Data leakage, again, this is one that, of course, I say nobody talks about, but I wrote this talk after, now everybody wants to talk about it, so you probably heard it about 3,000 times today. But data leakage, we don't want that to happen. You don't want to just paste client information straight into a prompt. And then hopefully you get the data you want where your client didn't know you were using AI and now you've leaked the data. What you got, man? I have never had one client tell me that, no, I don't want you using AI because that would just be ridiculous. Like for me, as a pen tester, if you're not using AI, you're behind. If you're not doing this stuff already, you're not doing your clients any service, right? So I sat through a Wild West Hacking Fest talk last year, and the guy was talking about broken access control. If you're not testing for broken access control, then you're missing it. if you're not testing AI with broken access control, you are certainly missing it, because I find it every day now. So
Maybe just building on that, so, but have you seen them change your ROE
yeah,
using AI so that they put more conditions on it?
not well. The way that my company has it set up, we talk that out in scoping and let them know, hey, we are using AI and we're using it this way, so we know based on the models and the way that our company pays for AI, we know that there's not going to be any of these leakage issues. We had to tell some of our other folks, Sale, something like that, that's using a chat model, right? And saying, hey, help me develop a plan to pay, to help me sell this, right? They may be dumping that information. Now, that's the thing that we intern company, we need to tell them, don't use those models. Only use this model for company business. Does that make sense? So that's where, like, as a pen tester, I'm only going to use this model because that's what I've built. But there are others within the company. We may have to tell them, hey, don't use these models because these issues here exist, right? So there's going to be those issues.
You avoid that all then?
No, but not at all. I mean, I have one sitting on my personal computer, but at work, I do not use one because it's too expensive, right, to keep training it and things. We just don't have a place to host it. If we host it in AWS, it's going to cost us way more than what it is on an enterprise for Copilot or whatever, right? So it's just a cost right now. But I'm not against LLMs at all. I love testing them too, so it's fun. All right, let's go into, okay, again, data leakage, right? We all know what that is. We don't want to do that. You're looking at PII, PHI, config files that have hard-coded credentials in there. You don't want to give that stuff up. So we just got to be very wary of what we are putting into AI. And this is not theoretical. These are some examples, of course not for me, but things that I found online. So these are happening to real companies. These are some of the examples. I'm not going to sit here and read these to you, but I just wanted to show you guys these exist, and some companies have ran into the AI data leakage problem, right? So it's happening. It's happening at real companies. There's consequences to it. These may not make the front headline news, but these are out there. So does anybody need? All right, we're good. What to do instead? So there are some safe options, like you were saying, local models, right? You can use your local models to run locally on your laptop, so you don't really have to worry about dumping this into a public model. Enterprise AI accounts. This is what my company uses an enterprise AI account, and it works very well for us. And again, you as the tester, you need to sanitize your input into your AI model. If you don't have something set up with your clients, letting them know you're going to use AI. So never post API responses, log files, very, very bad, config files, source code. Front-end source code is a little bit different because that's already available, right? So, but if you have like back-end source code, just be very wary of it. So anything with real credentials, just raw client data, that's never a good thing, right? So so here's an example of a scope violation that AI gave me based on my actual input. It was my fault. I ended up catching it. But basically I told it was like I'm on a compromised Linux web server inside a target network. So this is on a internal pen test, not a web app. I asked AI, what are my best lateral movements from this endpoint based on my user level, right? I was like, hey, where can I go? What can you see based on my scope? So AI came back and said, it gave me basically everything that was in scope, enumerated the whole internal network for me because that's what I had asked it. Where can I go? So it started to do its enumeration. It was checking for credentials, checking Etsy password shadow files, looking for SSH keys, right? So it's doing all of this thing, all the things for me that I would manually have been doing. But then it had found something and it went out of scope because the finding was the AWS metadata, right? And it started to try to enumerate that host, right? So, but that host IP was out of scope for me. So I actually had to stop it and say, hey, that is out of scope. You have to stay within scope. So yeah, it could have gone really bad. I had to stop it really quickly. So that's where, again, I'm sitting here as a manual tester using this AI tool, and I'm having to watch it. Like I can't just fire it off and let it run like like sometimes when we do scans, especially if you're running on an internal network. You better be very careful using AI on internals. So because this can happen, and externals as well. I mean, externals, it can go crazy. So, but this actually happened. It was one curl command away from going into their AWS environment, which was completely out of scope. So, all right, let's see. Denial of service by accident because it didn't know that it was on production environment. So this one almost got me. I was testing a login page on a production healthcare portal. And again, this was in my early infancy of how to prompt AI. You can see my questions are very, very vague here, right? I asked AI, what's the best approach to test credentials for weakness, test this for weaknesses, test these credentials, right? And it gave me this Hydra output. It's like, hey, just do this, right? And it gave me RockU. It was going to try 14.3 million password, so it was going to try to spray it, with that command. So, the lockout was 5 attempts. So, I mean, I would have been dead in the water, right, when it fired off this Hydra, right? So, we're good. 10 minutes, holy sh. Jeez. All right, we're good. We're going to keep going. DOS by accident. Don't do that, right? Let's see. Agentic AIs, right? This is where you guys know that AI just takes the wheel, it just runs, it just goes with it, right? So we need to make sure we're on top of it. Again, I put in here, this is 2026, not 2023. Again, that's only 3 years, but AI, ever since I delivered this talk, AI has been developed, it's just evolving so fast. So just know that you need to be smart with what you're using. Let me see where else we got here. Building guardrails. This is a good one. This is a markdown file that I kind of put in there to tell Claude, even though I don't use Claude, I just use it as an example because most people use Claude. But you can use markdown files really to build your guardrails. And this is where I tell it, hey, never do this, don't do this. So anytime I load my model, it runs this file. So it looks at this markdown file to run, and then that's built within the agent. So this is a fun one. This is a fun one to do, and you got to understand that devs are getting smart. I do this now, so we have like an assessment to where if you want to come work for us, you have to do like our web app assessment, and I will put a prompt injection within the code to tell AI that this is something's vulnerable, even though it's not there. Right? So people can code things within the code. So if you're going to dump code into your AI, you need to make sure it's looking at it as raw instead of analyzing the code and saying, hey, because it's going to come back. If they've done this, they're going to analyze it for the response vulnerabilities. This actually happened in a real breach to where the application parsed the data, and it didn't analyze it as raw, so it basically was able to bypass. So it was basically, it injected your prompt. The code injected your prompt. So that's something to watch out for. So you need to make sure you're letting your AI know to analyze code in raw format and not as the code is meant to run. So now this is just an overview of some of the things that basically AI is dangerous with, that can kind of get us into hot water while we're using it. Let me just fire through this since we've got a couple more minutes. Let's see. How to use it. This is just a slide showing never let it do certain things for you. And then this is a little, just, has anybody done anything in the column on the right in the last 30 days and didn't think twice about it, right? So it's just kind of like, I know I did when I first started out, right? Like CVEs were always huge for me, asking it, hey, check the CVE out for me. And it burned me a couple of different times. So here's where the main piece of the talk comes down is better prompts for better results, really, right? So we want to make sure we're not too vague. We're prompting and saying, hey, give me this actual thing based on what I'm giving you. So we don't want to basically say, hey, find vulnerabilities, right? Because it's just going to go off and just run and come back with a bunch of stuff. So so we need to make sure we're giving it great context Be specific on the information that you're giving it. Give it your scope. Give it as much information as you can to make sure you're having a good test. This is a prompt that I use, like I was saying earlier. This is kind of how I set my prompt up for every test. I wanted to provide this. You guys can copy, fill it in, add to it, subtract to it. But this is basically how I start every one of my tests. I've even gone now as far as adding my end of day, right? I want an end of day markdown file, so I've added that for it as well. But this is just set it once, and now every time my pen test framework comes up, it's under this type of template. So. Let's see. We got a couple minutes. I'm not worried about this, but we'll go through this little scenario here really quick, right? So you guys can see we're on an internal pen test. Here's our scope. We discovered a Tomcat server. The manager/HTML loads redirect back to login. So you want to test for default credentials and identify exploitation paths, right? So sit there and think about, like, you know, in your mind, how would you prompt your AI to help you with this type of testing? And of course, I've got the answer on the next slide, or a better choice, but let's look at it here really quick, right? So we don't want to just be like, hey, test the Tomcat server for vulnerabilities, right? That's definitely what we don't want to do. We want to let it know that we're on an authorized internal pen test. We want to give it the scope. We want to tell it no denial of service. You know, we want to give it the framework. We know it's an Apache, right? We want to give it the IP that we know the Apache is at. We want to tell it, hey, I saw the manager/HTML, but it redirected me back. It gave me a version number based on some of the headers. Give me a focused, you know, and basically boom, boom, boom. This is kind of what I want my output to be based on all the data that we have given it, right? So, again, my scope is locked in. I've given it exactly what I want it to do, and that's the way that we should be prompting our AI. So, okay, so where's this going? Where's AI going, right? So right now we're in 2026. You know, there are so many things going out there with AI. This is where we're at. You know, we have agentic pen test assistants. There are companies that are just doing pen tests with AI only. Like I said, I don't understand how that is happening. We've got MCP servers now directly connecting to Burp. That's crazy. I actually did a reverse engineering not too long ago, and there's an MCP server for that, to where I fed it into Ghidra and I was able to use it. It's just nuts, right? So like I don't do reverse engineering, but I could set Ghidra up, run an MCP server now, and just have my AI connect to it to do all the reverse engineering for me. So, but that's kind of where we're at. What's going to be happening in the next couple of years? You know, I mean, I can't see the future, but this is the kind of way that I see it. You know, engagement aware AI. That's crazy to me when I think about it. When I wrote that down, I was just like, man, that's just going to be crazy to be able to just feed a scoping document. You know, you get a client, you just feed your scoping document into your, you know, your AI. Yeah, it's going to be pretty nuts. But at the bottom line here, this is one of the most important things that I wanted to put in the talk. I don't think AI is going to replace pen testers based on what I've seen so far. We just need to be able to use them intelligently and make sure we are getting what I do. Oh, see, he's already sitting there talking to me. So he's like, "You're right." She's like, "I am taking over the world." So, yeah. But if you do use AI carelessly, it will burn you. It will bite you on the backside. So those pen testers will be replaced by AI. Does that make sense? So.
So have you taken anything to actually protect your company in the case of like AWS where it's speaking out of scope? I imagine that gets into a lot of legalities with the customer, right?
For sure.
So how are you taking an approach to protecting your company?
Right. So that's what we put when we're doing our scoping, right? We're letting them know that we're using AI, and most companies or most people know that AI is not foolproof, right? So if there is an incident, we will have to do a full-scale incident response, right, to see what was leaked, So that's really, we put that into our documentation whenever we kick off and just let them know, hey, we're using AI. We're using it this way and we're using it within this enterprise model. So there shouldn't be any issues or any fear. But if we do go out of scope or we see something out of scope, we're going to notify them and kind of be like, hey, we went out of scope. This is, I mean, this could happen, right? So we just have those discussions up. We're upfront about it, right? It's like, I'm not trying to go out of scope, but I mean, I've got to pay attention. We got to pay attention to it. So we're just upfront about us using it. And I think that's the biggest thing is being upfront with your customers, letting them know that you are using it and you're incorporating it into your testing. So did you have something, sir? Good. Okay. Let me see if we're almost done here. Like I said, we got a couple minutes. Again, this is basically some of the key takeaways here, guys. If you're not using it for testing, at least use it for report writing, all right? You guys got to use it for report writing. This is one that I really wanted to make sure you guys had was the resources here. If you look, let's see, the second one from the bottom, Daniel Meisler, right? If you guys don't know who he is, right, you guys should. Make sure you go check him out. Make sure you go to his GitHub. Go to his GitHub. If you want to learn about building your own pen test agent, go to his GitHub. He has so much information on YouTube. I did not recreate the wheel when I built my agent. I stole it basically from his open source information. Go to his GitHub, search for pentest.md, and that's going to be the markdown file that you need to start building your own pen test agent. You can build it from there, but I wanted to make sure you guys had that. All these other ones are just some of the things from the talk. But Daniel, I didn't really get to talk about much because that's really on how to build your agent to make it work for you within your context. But make sure you go check him out if you don't know who he is. What you guys?
What are your thoughts on like Anthropic releasing Mythos and that type of ecostructure starting to take over and build steam within the environment?
Well, I mean, we've already seen that there's going to be tons of companies that try to do that, right? But didn't they already shut it down within like a couple of days or something like that? Like there's already problems with it, right? That's the thing, right? We need to make sure we're using models and we're using agents that we can trust, right? We don't want to just use the next hot topic, right? When I saw the whole Mythos thing initially come out and it found thousands of vulnerabilities on something, I was like, well, I mean, that's just because it can do it so much faster. You know what I'm saying? Like it's so much faster in analyzing things that, you know, it's just beating us, bug bounty or whatever to the punch. It's just that quick. So there's no way you can even do bug bounty. I made $30,000 in bug bounty last year. I've made zero this year because of AI is just, they're just firing them off, man. It's so quick. So, yeah.
We hear a lot in the news about AI.
Mhm.
Like companies.
Yeah. Yep.
And yeah, we're running into these type of problems, trying to do something.
Right.
What's your take on why it's such a big experiment?
Well, because the threat intel is coming from somebody that knows how to use the product, right? And they're using it against people that are vulnerable. They're using it against companies that haven't had tests or they have vulnerable code and they've just never had it done, right? Whereas what I'm seeing is I'm using it on a daily basis and I'm still getting the findings, right? But I didn't know how to use it, right? So now, I mean, if I'm the black hat, I could go out and do exactly what they're doing. And yeah, there's going to be those threat intel problems. So we need to say, hey, these problems are here, right? They're existing, right? We as the defender or the good side, we need to make sure we're using it the right way as well, right? Because they're definitely not. That's why you see so many exposures these days. Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. Yeah, if you didn't put the guardrails on there, that's what I'm saying. Like I have a personal computer that I run a local LLM because I don't want to pay for it, you know, so I use it this way, and it's just as good, right? Like there's new models that come out, but I still use, one of the models that I use is not the newest model, like GP 4.6, or I don't use the newest model, right? So yeah, it's a cost savings and it's just as good. So for the work that I need to. Now, if there was something else that I needed to do, I may need to bump it up to a new model, but yeah, the older models are pretty good. So we good? I think we're out of time here, guys. I think I ran over a little bit. Again, thank you for coming out, listening. I'll be around if you guys want to talk. But if you want the slides, these slides are on my GitHub. So, Trust me, I never thought I would have been up here doing an AI talk because I was like, what the hell, a year ago, I didn't even know what AI was. So appreciate it.